Sometimes we feel different, don't we? Not different in appearance, but in perception. You enter a place and feel the atmosphere. You hear a sentence and grasp what lies behind it. You see a smile and notice the hidden pain. This is not exaggeration. For the chosen ones, it is a sign of a mind that sees beyond the ordinary. Perhaps that is why some people feel uncomfortable around you. Not because you are difficult, but because your presence disrupts the automatic. You don't buy just any narrative. You notice inconsistency. You ask questions that others avoid. And when the truth appears, even in silence, it unsettles those who live off appearances and control. The problem is that no one teaches the chosen one how to deal with this kind of intelligence. You grow up thinking you need to adjust, stay quiet, shrink yourself so as not to cause discomfort. But this attempt to fit in usually comes at a high cost. Exhaustion, loneliness, a sense of not belonging, and an internal weight that comes from denying who you are. But there is another way to live this. Instead of hiding your clarity, you learn to use it with maturity. Instead of saying everything, you learn to discern the right time. Instead of hardening yourself, you learn to protect your energy without losing your heart. Because your mind was not made to compete. It was made to guide, heal, align, and serve. If you have felt that your entire life has been a search for meaning, for truth, and for depth, then you are not alone. There is a reason you perceive so much. There is a purpose behind this clarity. And when you understand that, the feeling of being too much begins to turn into mission. I am George, and here we speak to the chosen ones, those who feel more, see beyond, and cannot live on the surface. If this content resonates with you, follow the channel and stay with me, because the next part will show you why your mind unsettles others, and how to transform that into strength. If you are listening to this right now, I want you to breathe calmly and understand one thing. It is not by chance that certain people feel uncomfortable around you. It is not because you are difficult. It is not because you want attention. And many times, it is not even because you talk too much. It is because your mind operates on a layer they cannot reach, and that generates fear. The chosen ones carry a kind of intelligence that does not depend on diplomas, titles, or applause. It is as if you know things before someone explains them, as if you can sense the ending of a story while others are still on the first page. You grasp intentions behind words, notice patterns before they repeat, and feel when something is out of place, even when everyone is smiling and pretending everything is fine. This clarity is not noise, it is silence. It comes as an inner knowing that arrives complete. And this unsettles people, because the world is full of those who rely on appearance, status, and control. When you arrive with lucidity, you disrupt the stage. Not out of malice, but out of presence. Perhaps you have lived this since early on. You said something simple yet deep, and they told you that you were exaggerating. You asked a question, and people looked at you strangely. You pointed out an obvious detail and were called negative. In truth, you were simply seeing what was already there. But many people prefer not to see. And when someone does see, discomfort arises. There are people who have learned to live in emotional darkness. They have grown accustomed to small lies, masks, and justifications. Your mind is like a flashlight in a dark room. And when the light turns on, some are grateful, but others become irritated, because the light forces them to face what was hidden. This explains why, at times, you are rejected without having done anything. It explains why your presence changes the atmosphere of a place. It explains why some conversations die when you arrive. It is not persecution, it is reaction. Your clarity touches where it hurts. And I want you to understand something important. Their reaction does not define you. You are not wrong for being deep. You do not need to shrink yourself to keep the peace in places where peace only exists because no one speaks the truth. But direction requires maturity, because seeing farther also makes you feel alone at times. Seeing farther makes you carry questions that no one wants to answer. And at first, this hurts, but that pain is not punishment. It is a sign of expansion. Have you noticed how some people become defensive around you, even when you are not arguing? You may be silent, just observing, and still someone changes their tone. Someone over-justifies themselves. Someone tries to prove something. This happens because your mind perceives truth effortlessly, and truth exposes what is fragile. The chosen ones do not need to hunt for inconsistency. It appears. You hear a sentence and feel the weight behind it. You see a gesture and perceive the intention. You sense when someone is performing, when someone is manipulating, when someone is trying to control the narrative. And you cannot always pretend that you did not see it. For many people, life is built on silent agreements. Let's pretend everything is fine. Let's keep up appearances. Let's avoid discomfort. But you cannot live well within this pact. Your mind was not made to sustain lies. And that is why when you enter, the energy changes. Sometimes you share an idea and are called exaggerated. You suggest a path, and they say it is impossible. You point out a risk, and they say you are pessimistic. But later, months or years afterward, exactly what you saw happens. And this leaves you with two mixed feelings. Relief for having trusted yourself, and exhaustion from having been ignored. The problem is not that people do not understand your words. Many times they do understand. What they cannot tolerate is what your words represent. Because what you say cuts through illusion. And illusion is comfortable. Illusion protects the ego. Illusion avoids change. When you speak, you pull the rug out from under self-deception. That is why fear appears. Some people will try to diminish you with irony. Others will paint you as complicated. Others will say that you think too highly of yourself. This is a common strategy. When they cannot reach your depth, they try to turn your depth into a flaw. But you need to remember, you were not called to be understood by everyone. You were called to be faithful to what God placed within you. And faithfulness is not always popular. There is, however, a care to be taken. Your clarity is not a license to wound. Being deep does not mean being harsh. Being truthful does not mean being cruel. God did not give you discernment to humiliate anyone. He gave you discernment to serve, protect, guide, and heal. What changes everything is intention. If you use truth to prove yourself, you lose yourself. If you use truth to illuminate, you strengthen yourself. And this is a fine line that the chosen one learns to respect. That is also why, many times, you prefer silence. Not because you do not know how to speak, but because you have learned that not every environment deserves your revelation. There are places where truth turns into conflict, and you did not come to fight. You came to align. If you are one of the chosen, you have probably already lived through periods of solitude that others would not understand. It is not that kind of loneliness of, nobody loves me. It is something else. It is as if you need to step away to breathe. As if the noise of the world is too much. As if you have to choose silence in order not to lose yourself. Many people think being alone is sadness. For you, many times, it is healing. It is in silence that your mind organizes everything. It is in solitude that you perceive what is yours and what came from others. It is when you withdraw that your clarity becomes stronger. This happens because your perception is high. You pick up emotional details, the energy of environments, tension hidden in conversation, falseness disguised as kindness. When you are exposed too much, Your system overloads, and solitude becomes a form of cleansing. Some people will say that you are closed off. Others will say that you are selective. Others will say that you disappear. But what they do not know is that you disappear so you do not break. You withdraw so you do not explode. You step away to keep your heart clean. And there is a spiritual truth in this. God usually forms deep people in hidden places. Before placing someone in position, He works on character, humility, and discernment. And many times, this work happens in solitude, where no one applauds, no one validates, and no one sees. Solitude does two things. It reveals and it strengthens. It reveals your fears, your needs, your emptiness, and it strengthens your foundation because it forces you to sustain yourself. That is why many chosen ones go through phases where they seem stuck. In truth, they are being built from the inside. You may have felt that you carry a language that few people speak. You think deeply, feel deeply, perceive deeply, and sometimes it feels like the world only talks on the surface. That brings fatigue. That brings the desire to be silent. But it also brings maturity. Because when no one understands you, you learn to depend less on approval. You learn to be guided by truth and not by applause. You learn not to sell your essence just to fit in. And over time, something begins to happen. You realize that solitude is not the absence of connection. It is another kind of connection. You begin to feel God closer in silence. You begin to perceive direction in small signs. You begin to hear your intuition more clearly. The chosen one is not solitary because they want to be. They are solitary because they need to be. They need it to align the heart. They need it to hear clearly. They need it to remember who they are without interference. This is the solitude of the chosen. It is not abandonment. It is a workshop. It is preparation. It is God aligning you for purpose. One of the greatest traps for someone with an above-average mind is thinking they need to say everything all the time. Because when you see something clearly, you feel like warning, correcting, pointing out, helping. But spiritual maturity is not saying everything. It is knowing when to speak. The chosen one learns that not every truth needs to be delivered immediately. And this is not cowardice. It is discernment. It is understanding that form and timing change impact. Think of a seed. If you dig up the soil every day to see if it is growing, you prevent its growth. Some things need to remain hidden until they take root. With your perception, it is similar. There are truths you understand ahead of time. And if you put them on the table too early, people reject them, ridicule them, or distort them. So God also gives you intuition. Intuition is like a wise break. It says, not now, or it says, now, yes. And when it is now, yes, your words enter like a key. Not because you spoke beautifully, but because the ground is ready. You have probably lived this. You said something and no one cared. Later, at another moment, you said the same thing, and the person understood immediately. The difference was not the sentence. It was the timing. It was the other person's heart. It was the level of openness. Discernment also protects you from weariness. Because if you try to convince someone who does not want to see, you get tired. You get frustrated. You begin to doubt yourself. And that is dangerous, because it makes you diminish your gift, because of others' resistance. The chosen one does not argue to win. They speak to serve. And serving, at times, is remaining silent. Not out of fear, but out of stewardship. Because well-used silence preserves energy, preserves peace, preserves focus. This does not mean accepting injustice. It does not mean staying silent in the face of what is wrong when it is time to take a stand. It means learning the difference between I need to speak and I want to react. The chosen one grows when they learn to respond, not react. There is a price to carrying vision. You may be interpreted as intense. You may be called complicated. They may say that you think too much. But many times, you think because you perceive. And you perceive because you were made this way. The question is, will you condemn yourself for being deep? Or will you learn to use this with wisdom? If you learn this, your mind stops being a source of conflict and becomes a source of healing. Because the same light that unsettles also guides. The difference is this: are you holding the flashlight with anger or with love? There is a phrase that many chosen ones have already heard in some form. You are too much, too intense, too deep, too sensitive, too serious, too observant. And sometimes this even comes disguised as a compliment. But deep down, many of these phrases carry a request. Be smaller so I can feel comfortable. When someone says that you are too much, they are often not talking about you. They are talking about their own internal limit. They are talking about their inability to keep up with depth without feeling exposed. Your mind asks questions that most people avoid. Your eyes perceive nuances that others ignore. Your presence, even in silence, brings a kind of truth that does not allow things to stay on autopilot. And that is frightening, because autopilot gives a sense of control. The world likes predictable people. People who follow the script. People who do not shake structures. And the chosen one, even when trying, is never fully predictable. Because you were not made to fit into a mold. You were made to awaken, and those who awaken break patterns. This does not mean that you are superior. It means that you have responsibility. Because yes, your mind can be a blessing, but it can also become a burden if you try to carry everything alone. The chosen one needs to learn how to rest. And resting is not stopping thinking. It is stopping being so hard on yourself. It is stopping trying to save everyone. It is stopping responding to attacks with explanations. It is accepting that some people will only understand you when life teaches them. And you do not need to be there to prove anything. There is a delicate point here. When you are rejected for being deep, you may start to shrink. You may begin to silence what you feel. You may start pretending to be superficial so you are not judged. And that makes you sick. Because when the chosen one betrays their own essence, they lose strength. The chosen one learns to validate themselves from within, learns to anchor themselves in prayer, in silence, in discipline, in truth, learns to say, I know who I am. Not with arrogance, but with firmness. And when you know who you are, opinions lose power. You listen, filter, and move on. You stop breaking yourself to fit into environments that do not honor you. You stop begging for space. You create space by leaving what diminishes you and entering what strengthens you. When they call you too much, remember this. Maybe you are too much for their comfort zone, but you are exactly the right size for the purpose God gave you. There is a difference between shining and serving. The world teaches that intelligence is for competing, winning, humiliating, conquering status. But the intelligence that God places in a chosen one has another purpose: to guide, protect, heal, and build. That is why, if you have this mind that perceives too much, the invitation is not show it to everyone. The invitation is align the gift with the heart. Because a gift without love becomes a weapon, but a gift with love becomes medicine. You have probably already noticed that your mind does not function only with logic. It functions with discernment. You feel the environment. You read emotions. You identify incoherence. You perceive what is not said. This kind of perception can save you from traps, from toxic relationships, from wrong decisions. But it can also give you anxiety if you try to control everything. The chosen one needs to learn to trust, to do their part and surrender the rest, to use wisdom with humility, to recognize that seeing does not mean dominating. When you align your intelligence with God's will, you become a stable presence. You do not need to shout. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to compete. You become consistent, and consistency is rare. Because many people live on impulse, on the emotion of the moment, on a wounded ego. The chosen one, when mature, becomes a bridge. They become someone who brings peace into chaos, clarity into confusion, direction into doubt. But this requires inner discipline. It requires prayer. It requires silence. It requires caring for the body. It requires filtering environments, because you cannot serve well if you live drained. Part of your mission may simply be to be with a clean presence, to be with truthful eyes, to be with the right words at the right time. Sometimes you heal someone without realizing it, simply because you were the first person who did not pretend. Simply because you were the first person who truly listened. There comes a moment in the life of the chosen one when something changes inside. You stop asking, "Why am I like this?" And you begin to affirm, "I accept who I am." This is the turning point. Because when you accept yourself, you stop diminishing yourself. You understand that your mind was not made to fit into the noise of the world. It was made to hear God in the middle of the noise. It was made to discern when everyone else is confused. It was made to see when many prefer to close their eyes. And the most beautiful part is that this does not place you above anyone. It places you in service. It places you in mission. It places you in responsibility. Over time, the right people begin to appear. People who do not ask you to be less. People who are not bothered by your depth. People who feel safe with your clarity. And when these people arrive, you feel, finally, I don't have to translate my soul all the time. Because this path requires humility and courage at the same time. Humility so you do not become arrogant. Courage so you do not become small. And I want to close with a simple reminder. If they are frightened by your mind, that is not a sign that you should dim yourself. It is a sign that you must learn how to shine in the right way, with peace, with firmness, with wisdom, at the right time. Your clarity is a gift. Your vision is a gift. Your depth is a gift. And what God places in you is not an accident. It is part of the purpose. If you have followed along this far, you already understand the essence of this message. What makes you seem different is not a flaw. It is depth. There are people who live on autopilot and can move through environments feeling almost nothing. You do not. You perceive the atmosphere, capture intention, feel when something is not aligned. And as tiring as this can be, it is also what protects and guides you. For a long time, you may have tried to adjust this perception so as not to bother anyone. You learn to swallow words, to soften opinions, to shrink your vision to fit into shallow conversations. But when a chosen one reduces themselves, they do not become more accepted. They become more distant from themselves. And that distance is what creates that feeling of emptiness, exhaustion, and not belonging. From the moment you understand that your mind sees from above, you stop blaming yourself for not functioning like the majority. You understand why certain people react badly to your presence, even when you did nothing. Your clarity touches internal structures they prefer to keep intact. Your lucidity dismantles masks. Your calm exposes inconsistencies. And that is frightening, because it forces the other to see themselves. But the cure for this is not hiding. It is learning to use the gift with maturity. Discernment is the key. Not every truth needs to be spoken, but every truth needs to be honored within you. Not every perception needs to turn into confrontation, but every perception can become direction. The chosen one is not called to shine out of pride. They are called to serve with integrity, at the right time and in the right way. And there is something very important. You do not need to convince anyone of your depth. Your calling does not depend on the approval of those who do not understand your language. God gave you this mind to guide you, to protect you, to prepare you. The validation you seek outside, you find within when you decide to be faithful to what you know, feel, and perceive. That is when anxiety diminishes and peace begins to grow. With time, the right people will draw near. People who do not require you to be smaller. People who are not offended by your truth. People who recognize your light without you needing to justify yourself. And when that happens, you realize that your mind was never a problem. It was simply in the wrong place, trying to be understood by those who are not yet ready. Now I want to hear from you. At what moment in your life did you realize that you saw something before others did? And how did that affect you inside? Write in the comments a situation, a phrase, or even a single word that sums up that experience.